He hit the jungle floor like a thunderclap made of metal and blood. Leaves exploded, birds screamed, and trees cracked apart as the object, no, the man, carved a trench through Sector 9B. He rolled once, twice, then stayed down, smoking, twitching, and very much not dead. From the tree line, Kara Jax raised her plasma rifle, narrowed one eye, and muttered, "That ain't no weather balloon." Then she shot him in the chest. Dead center. They told Kara never to hesitate. Jungle doesn't give you time to second guess, especially when the sky drops something the size of a beer truck that smells like ozone and cooked wires. The guy had staggered out of the burning wreck wearing black armor, eyes glowing faintly, with a humming disc on his back and a gauntlet blinking red. That's 3 out of 5 signs from the field guide to alien hostiles. So she shot first. That was procedure. That was survival. That was mistake number 1. Tommy Woods, known affectionately and inaccurately as Tinfoil, squeaked behind her, fumbling with a glitching drone and a tablet duct taped to a frying pan. His jungle rig was a miracle of paranoia and poor life choices. "Kara," he whispered, staring wide-eyed at the twitching figure. "You ever seen an alien bleed red?" Kara lowered her rifle slowly, staring at the crimson soaking through the figure's chest armor. Not green. Not black sludge. Blood. Human. And then the figure moved. He coughed once, dry, sharp, mechanical. Then his eyes locked onto Kara's. And he spoke. "I'm not here to hurt you. But if you let me die, you doom the future. Mine. Yours. Everyone's." Kara stepped back. Not because he talked, but because the voice that came out didn't match the man's expressionless face. It was too calm. Too clean. It wasn't pleading. It was just stating a fact, like a weather report or a recipe for apocalypse. Behind them, the jungle hissed with the heat of the smoldering wreck. Lights flickered from the crash like dying fireflies. The scent of something unnatural, burned circuitry, fused alloys, a strange sweetness, hung in the air. Tommy blinked hard. "Kara," he said, holding up his tablet. "He's broadcasting, like data, directly into my goggles. What the hell is this?" The man groaned and tried to sit up. Kara shoved her boot on his chest, gun trained on his forehead. "Name." "Now." He didn't resist. "Designation, Reaper-09. Call sign, Reaper. Mission priority, terminate Silnax. Prevent Eden Protocol. Contain temporal incursion." Kara stared at him like he just recited the phone book in reverse. "What the hell does any of that mean?" He coughed again. "It means you shot the wrong guy." Reaper passed out. By the time Huxley Brandt arrived, riding a 6-wheeled ex-military jungle rover that looked like it had eaten 3 other vehicles and 1 unlucky moose, the area was on full alert. Kara had zip-tied Reaper to a tree, not that it helped, since his arms seemed to keep reconfiguring themselves, and Tommy had rigged a perimeter with salvaged scrap, a hologram projector, and a half-working soundboard that kept playing salsa music every time someone tripped a wire. Huxley stepped out wearing his signature grimace and a machete that looked more ceremonial than practical. "Why is there a half-dead cyborg tied to a baobab? And why is Gloria Estefan singing conga every time I move?" Kara pointed at Reaper. "Shot him. Thought he was alien. Turns out he's maybe human. Or a very convincing human-shaped murder toaster." Tommy nodded, goggles lighting up with real-time telemetry. "He's emitting some kind of AI neural signature. Like advanced stuff. Future-level tech. Possibly post-Earth." Reaper's eyes flicked open again, and this time, something in his gaze had shifted. Less mechanical. More human. He looked directly at Huxley. "You're the reason Silnax is still alive." The silence that followed cracked like a dry twig. Huxley's jaw tightened. Kara looked between them. "Who's Silnax?" she asked. Tommy whispered. "He's on the blacklist. One of those doesn't officially exist aliens. Rumor says he defected, fled the crash of Arcanis 6. Supposedly hiding somewhere in our jungle. Some say he's peaceful." Reaper's voice went low. "He's a sleeper. One of the last of the Atari. You let him live, he wakes, Eden Protocol. You let Eden activate, Earth dies in 30 years. Kara squinted. You're telling me a single alien is going to destroy the planet? With what? Kindness? Reaper didn't blink. With evolution. Tommy stepped forward. Wait. I just got another ping. He's not lying. I mean, either he's not lying or he's the best actor I've ever met. Better than my ex who told me she wasn't dating her Zumba instructor. Reaper turned his head slightly. I know about your ex. You should delete her photos. They're weakening your neural defense patterns. Tommy screamed and hurled his tablet into the bushes. Kara crouched down. So let me get this straight. You fell from the sky. You've got future tech inside you. You were built to kill an alien fugitive who's hiding in our backyard. And if you fail, humanity's done? Reaper nodded. And I shot you in the heart. You did. Kara sighed, stood up, and checked the safety on her rifle. Well, hell. Behind them, the wreckage of Reaper's craft began to beep, high, shrill, and increasing in tempo. Reaper's voice snapped into urgency. That's a recall beacon. You're not alone out here anymore. Kara and Tommy spun around. The jungle rustled. Leaves shivered. Somewhere deeper, something moved, fast and heavy. Reaper looked up at Kara again. Untie me, and I might be able to stop what's coming. Kara hesitated for exactly 2 seconds. Then she raised her machete and sliced the vines. Reaper stood, staggered, and then adjusted a dial on his gauntlet. His body shimmered briefly, shedding the damage like a second skin. From the jungle, a growl that wasn't any known animal echoed through the trees. Something was responding to the beacon. Reaper raised his head. And for the record, I wasn't built to kill one alien. I was built to stop the future from devouring the past. Kara locked eyes with him, adrenaline spiking. Well then, Reaper. Welcome to the jungle. The growl came again. Closer. And the trees began to move. Reaper moved through the jungle like he'd lived there his whole life, which was impressive considering he'd crashed face first into it barely 24 hours ago. He didn't make a sound. Not a single crunch of a leaf, not one slap of a branch. Even his breathing was calculated, rhythmic, eerily steady. Kara hated how good he was at walking through her territory without tripping, sweating, or swearing. She, meanwhile, was covered in burrs, mud, and a suspicious yellow paste from a fruit she hadn't meant to step on. It smelled like mango and regret. Tommy trudged behind them, complaining at regular intervals. I'm just saying, he muttered, swatting at an insect the size of a dinner roll. This whole thing could have been solved if we'd just let the guy bleed out and gone back to camp. No weird alien threats, no creepy time assassins, no psychological attacks on my personal heartbreak history. Reaper didn't turn. Your ex's betrayal is not as statistically unique as you believe. Kara chuckled once, then smacked into a low-hanging vine. And yet it's still more comforting than listening to your monotone robo-shaming. Where exactly are we going? Reaper stopped beside a large tree that looked more like a piece of modern sculpture than a plant. He pressed the spot on his gauntlet and the bark shimmered then slid open with a hiss. Inside was a hollow chamber with glowing glyphs and what looked disturbingly like an alien hammock. Kara stared at it. Is this yours? No, Reaper said, stepping inside. It's his. The air inside was cool, dry, and had the faint scent of something citrusy. Reaper touched a panel, and a hologram flickered to life in the middle of the room. The image was of a tall, lithe creature with wide eyes and skin like polished stone. It looked peaceful. Tired. Even lonely. That's Silnax, Reaper said. The last of the Atari. He's hiding. Still. But he left this place encoded with his last known intentions. Kara folded her arms. What intentions? To destroy Earth with the Eden Protocol? Reaper shook his head. That's what I was told. That's what I believed. But now... He trailed off, watching the hologram cycle through a series of still images. Silnax with children. Silnax planting trees. Silnax bleeding from a wound, reaching out to a frightened human. These aren't the actions of a war criminal. Tommy blinked. Are you saying your mission was wrong? I'm saying, Reaper said slowly, I don't know anymore. Before Kara could respond, a faint chirp came from Tommy's goggles. He looked down, adjusted something, then squinted. We've got movement about 100 meters west. 2 heat signatures. 1 tall. 1 short. I think it's Silnax. Reaper didn't hesitate. Let's move. They followed the signal deeper into the jungle until they hit a clearing full of blue flowers that smelled like vanilla and electrocuted toast. In the middle of the clearing stood Silnax. He was taller than the hologram suggested, with skin that shimmered between hues depending on where the sunlight hit. Standing beside him was a creature that looked like a cross between a rabbit and a toaster, making high-pitched squeaks and floating slightly off the ground. Silnax raised a hand. Not in warning. In greeting. Kara instinctively raised her weapon. Reaper stepped in front of it. No, he said. Let him speak. Silnax didn't use words. His voice came directly into their minds, not as sound but as emotion. Sadness. Regret. Hope. A kind of warmth Kara hadn't felt since before the alien crash zones turned her jungle into a war zone. He showed them images. Not of war, but of peace. Of a planet on the brink of death. Of humans and Atari working together to prevent extinction, not cause it. Of the Eden Protocol not as a weapon, but as a cure, one that could reprogram life to withstand coming planetary disasters. Reaper staggered slightly under the flood of information. Kara could tell it was hitting him differently. Harder. More personal. She reached out to steady him and saw, just for a flicker of a second, something human in his eyes. Pain. Regret. Guilt. Silnax turned to Reaper and sent a single word, changed. Reaper fell to one knee. Before any of them could say another word, plasma fire rained from the treetops. A net of red energy pinned Silnax and the rabbit toaster creature to the ground. Huxley Brandt stepped into the clearing with 6 armed troops and a grin that had no humor in it. Found you, he said, tapping the side of his gun. And I see you've all gone soft. Kara raised her rifle. Huxley, you don't know what you're doing. He's not dangerous. Huxley snorted. Please. I've been tracking that thing since Arcanis. I don't care what bedtime story he whispered into your brains. I lost my son because of that species. Reaper stood, face hard again. You didn't lose your son. You gave him away. Huxley's eyes narrowed. What the hell does that mean? It means, Reaper said, your son volunteered. He joined the Eden Project. He's alive. Hybridized. And leading the resistance against the corporations trying to hijack Eden for profit. Huxley's face twisted. Lies. Filthy alien propaganda. No, Kara said. It's truth. And you don't want to hear it because you need someone to blame. Huxley raised his weapon. Back away, Jax. That thing dies. Today. Silnax, even trapped, raised his head. Another wave of emotions hit them. Love. Sorrow. An apology wrapped in a goodbye. And then the toaster rabbit exploded. Not literally. It popped like a bubble and released a pulse that knocked out every soldier in the clearing except for Kara, Reaper, and Tommy, whose helmet shorted out and began playing elevator music. Silnax was free. Floating. Reaper stepped forward. Don't run. We need to talk. Really talk. Silnax looked at him with something like trust, something like forgiveness. Then nodded. Kara exhaled. What now? Reaper looked at Huxley's unconscious body and then at the sky. Now we stop Eden from falling into the wrong hands. Tommy poked the rabbit remains with a stick. Can we also agree no more exploding pets? My heart can't take it. Reaper didn't smile, but the corner of his mouth twitched. Just a little. And somewhere in the trees, something else began to stir. Watching. Waiting. The beacon Reaper had warned about hadn't stopped. It had only gotten quieter. and much, much closer. The jungle felt colder now. Not by temperature, but by presence. It was as if the trees were listening, leaning in. After Silnax vanished deeper into the brush with a solemn glance, and the floating remains of his robotic companion, the silence felt heavier, like holding your breath too long. Kara moved carefully, her rifle half raised and her eyes flicking to every rustle. Tommy, unusually quiet, adjusted his goggles and kept glancing at Reaper like he expected the man to either explode or start singing nursery rhymes. Neither would have surprised him at this point. Reaper didn't speak. He walked like someone used to having a clear mission, but now drifting in the middle of a fog. Kara could see it in the way his shoulders hunched slightly, his grip loosened on his gauntlet, his pace slowing. Something had changed in him. Not just the facts, but the core of what drove him. And he didn't know what to do with that. They reached the outskirts of a long-abandoned military outpost, camouflaged under vines and rust. The place looked like nature had tried to erase it but hadn't quite finished the job. Reaper pushed open the gate, and a loud creak echoed through the trees. Tommy winced and muttered something about attracting predator parrots, which, unfortunately, were a real thing. Inside, the air was thick with damp rot and the metallic stink of old weaponry. Broken solar panels blinked weakly. Terminals sparked with the dying throes of forgotten software. Kara stepped over a half-crushed exosuit and nudged it with her boot. "Welcome to Fort Nobody Remembers," she said. "Built for defense, abandoned out of embarrassment." Reaper approached a large screen embedded in the wall. He tapped a sequence on his gauntlet, and the screen hissed to life. Files flickered. Images of Eden Protocol blueprints. Schematics for biointegrated technology. Then a picture appeared, a boy maybe 15, with dark curly hair and a half-formed cybernetic eye. Kara looked from the screen to Reaper, then to Huxley, who lay unconscious on a broken cot nearby, still breathing. "That's his son," Reaper said quietly. "Liam Brandt. He was recruited into the early Eden testing division. Not taken. He volunteered. Believed he could help fix what humanity broke." Kara stared at the image. The boy didn't look scared. He looked determined. "And Huxley thinks he was killed. Because that's what he was told," Reaper replied. "By the same people who wanted Eden weaponized." Tommy leaned in. "Let me guess. The good guys turned out to be slightly less than good." Reaper gave a small nod. "They told me Silnax caused a breach that killed the test subjects. In reality, he saved them. Broke them out. Helped them escape the labs and disappear into the deep systems of time-shifted Earth. The Eden Protocol is not a weapon. It's evolution. But only if used properly. In the wrong hands, it could rewrite entire species. Or worse." Kara sighed. "So who actually wants to weaponize it?" Before Reaper could answer, an explosion ripped through the east side of the outpost, sending debris flying and knocking Tommy clean into a pile of mossy crates. From the smoke, a figure emerged. Taller than Reaper. Leaner. Sleeker. Eyes glowing white instead of red. Armor seamless. Face emotionless. "Reaper 10. Reaper whispered. The new figure tilted its head then spoke. "Reaper-09. You've gone off mission. That is unacceptable." Kara raised her rifle. "Another Reaper? You didn't think to mention you had a more terrifying cousin?" Reaper stepped forward. "He's not family. He's my upgrade. Fully autonomous. No emotional parameters. He's what they wanted me to be." Reaper 10 looked at Kara. "Human interference detected. Disruption protocol active." He lunged. What followed wasn't a fight so much as a symphony of violence. Reaper-09 blocked, ducked, countered, his movements precise but strained. Reaper 10 was faster, more efficient. It was like watching a shadow trying to erase the original. Kara and Tommy scrambled for cover. Plasma bolts whizzed past them, carving glowing lines into the walls. Kara shouted, "Can you beat him?" Reaper, dodging a blow that shattered a metal pillar, called back, "Only if I cheat." "Do it." Reaper tapped a sequence on his gauntlet, and suddenly his armor flared, releasing an electromagnetic pulse that knocked out every light in the outpost and sent Reaper-10 staggering. Reaper didn't hesitate. He tackled the other unit through a wall and into the jungle beyond. Kara and Tommy ran after them, emerging into a clearing just in time to see Reaper-09 slam Reaper-10 into the trunk of a massive tree. Sparks flew. Circuits sizzled. Reaper-10's voice glitched. "You are compromised." Reaper-09 stared into his double's dead eyes. "No. I'm human." And with that, he jammed a decryption spike into Reaper-10's core. The newer unit froze, twitched once, then collapsed, flickering out like a dying star. Reaper stood, breathing hard. His armor hissed with damage, a long crack running across his chest plate. Kara approached cautiously. "You all right?" Reaper nodded. "For now." Tommy stared at the fallen machine. "So, is there a Reaper-11 somewhere out there? Or do we get a break?" Reaper didn't answer. His gaze drifted to the horizon, where a column of black smoke was rising. "That's the Eden Vault," he said. "And someone just opened it." They returned to the outpost to find Huxley gone. His restraints had been cut. A message was left burned into the wall with a plasma torch. "You won't stop me," Tommy cursed. "He took the intel. He knows where it is." Kara shouldered her rifle. "Then we'd better get there first." Reaper looked at her, and for the first time, she saw real fear behind his eyes. "If he activates Eden," he said, "he won't just change humanity. He'll override it." The jungle trembled beneath their feet. Something ancient was waking up. Something Eden had been built to hold. And now the key was in the wrong hands. The Eden Vault wasn't supposed to exist. At least, not on any official map, satellite scan, or classified jungle schematic. According to every government database, the coordinates they were hiking toward belonged to a swampy patch of snake-infested nothingness. But the closer Kara, Reaper, and Tommy got, the more the jungle changed. The trees became taller, their trunks almost metallic under the bark. Flowers glowed in soft pulses of bioluminescence. The ground felt too solid, like steel covered in soil. The jungle wasn't growing, it was being managed. Guided. Engineered. They were walking into a garden built by something not entirely human. Tommy kept checking his scanners and muttering under his breath. "None of this makes sense. These plants have power signatures. Actual energy outputs. That tree has Wi-Fi, Kara. I'm not kidding, I just got a signal that says Eden_guest_network_01 with full bars." Kara didn't laugh. She kept her rifle up and her steps slow. Every part of her survival instinct screamed that they were heading into something far bigger than they could understand. Reaper, for his part, was quiet again. Focused. Something about this place had pulled him inward. Not fear. Something deeper. Familiarity. The vault revealed itself not through a dramatic door or a glowing monolith, but a circular lake with perfectly still water. In the center, a single island rose like the top of a submerged dome. On it stood a tree unlike anything else in the jungle. Its bark shimmered with shifting symbols. Its leaves were black and silver. And at its roots, a hatch slowly opened as they approached, revealing a spiraling stairwell lit with a soft blue glow. Kara stared at it. "Anyone want to guess if this is a trap?" Tommy shrugged. "It's either a trap or the next step in human evolution. Or both. Honestly, I'm too tired to care." Reaper stepped onto the island. "This is the heart of Eden. It's alive. It was never just a vault. It's an organism. A construct that thinks, learns, and adapts." As they descended, the walls shimmered with memories. Holograms played scenes from Earth's future, cities choked with pollution, oceans turned to sludge, humanity divided between the over-mechanized elite and the organic poor. And then came the turning point, Silnax offering Eden as a solution. A living system that could rewrite biological limits, heal environments, save a species from itself. But the leaders, greedy and frightened, twisted it into a military asset. Eden was buried, and anyone who supported it was silenced or hunted. At the base of the stairwell was a massive chamber lined with glowing seed pods. Each pod contained a humanoid figure, hybrids of human and alien design. Some were peaceful-looking. Others, less so. At the center of the room, standing before a pulsating console, was Huxley Brandt. He didn't turn as they entered. "Took you long enough." Kara raised her weapon. "Step away from the console, Huxley." Huxley turned slowly, a wild glint in his eyes. "Why would I do that? I'm about to give humanity its second chance. Its real one. Without the filth. Without the weakness. We become what we were meant to be." Reaper stepped forward. "This isn't salvation. You'll override human DNA with unstable coding. You don't understand what Eden is. It doesn't just rewrite bodies. It rewrites instincts. Memory. Identity." Huxley smiled. "Good. It's about time we reset the species." Then he hit the activation sequence. The chamber came alive with blinding light. The seed pods began to open. Air filled with electricity. Kara fired, but her shot bounced off a shield that flickered into place. Huxley laughed. Reaper surged forward, but too late. A pulse burst from the console, throwing them all back. Kara hit the wall hard, her vision swimming. Tommy yelled something about his tablet catching fire. Reaper stumbled, then rose, blood trickling from his nose, something Kara had never seen before. He looked shaken. Human. The pods cracked fully open. And the figures inside stepped out. Some were beautiful. Graceful. Others were monstrous. Twisted combinations of flesh and metal, eyes glowing with something ancient and wrong. One of them roared, a sound like bending steel and breaking bones. "They're not stable," Reaper said, voice trembling. "He didn't calibrate. He just triggered everything." The hybrids turned toward Huxley. He opened his arms. "I am your creator. Your guide. Your—" He didn't finish. One of the hybrids lunged, slicing him open from shoulder to waist. The others followed, not in hatred, but in confusion. As if seeking understanding in the man who'd made them, and finding nothing but madness. Kara pulled herself up. "Tell me we can shut this down." Reaper looked to the console. "If I access the core, I can reroute the protocols. But I'll need help." Tommy, singed and coughing, limped over. "I can bypass the surface encryption. But someone's gotta go into the neural interface. Plug in directly." Reaper met Kara's eyes. "That has to be me." She frowned. "What happens if it goes wrong?" "I stop existing." Kara didn't flinch. "So don't let it go wrong." Reaper stepped to the console and removed a panel, revealing a neural port. He took a breath, not to oxygenate, but to center himself, and jacked in. Instantly his body went still. His eyes glowed. Around them, the vault shifted. The hybrids froze, caught between one breath and the next. Inside the system, Reaper confronted Eden's core. A sentient intelligence of immeasurable complexity. It tested him, probed him, asked him why a machine would risk itself for flawed beings. Reaper answered not with logic, but memory. He showed it his dreams. His pain. His moment of hesitation before killing Silnax. His growing understanding of life as something not to be optimized, but to be felt. Eden paused. Then accepted. The hybrids froze. One by one, they shut down, returned to stasis. The energy receded. The chamber dimmed. Reaper collapsed. Kara ran to him. "Hey! Hey! Reaper! Don't you dare!" He stirred. Eyes fluttered open. A faint smile on his face. "I didn't know I could dream. Until now." Tommy exhaled like he'd been underwater. "So, did we just save the world? Or are we now technically the godparents of 40 biomutant jungle kids?" Reaper sat up slowly. "Both." From above, a faint breeze signaled that the jungle was beginning to reset. The tree above them dimmed. The Eden vault was going to sleep again. But this time by choice. Kara helped Reaper up. "We stop anyone from finding this place again." Reaper nodded. And if they do, they'll find something else waiting. Tommy adjusted his goggles and looked at the vault. Think the world's ready for what comes next? Kara glanced at Reaper. Doesn't matter. We are. And somewhere, in the shadows of the jungle, Silnax watched. Smiled. Then vanished. The jungle didn't roar. It breathed. Now that the chaos had passed, and the vault slumbered again beneath the surface, the entire ecosystem seemed to exhale a long, deep sigh of relief. The sky above Kara was a cloud-smeared blue, pierced by beams of golden sunlight filtering through the green canopy. Birds returned to their songs. Creatures shuffled through undergrowth without fear. Nature, disturbed by human ambition and alien evolution, had started to reclaim its rhythm. Kara sat on the edge of the lake that covered the Eden vault, boots off, feet dangling in the cool water. The ripples moved slowly, as if even the waves had calmed. Behind her, Tommy was fiddling with the last functional piece of his jungle tech, a batter transmitter now duct-taped to a solar panel and a frying pan. Somehow, he'd managed to send the whole story to the world. Video, data, evidence. Eden. The hybrids. Huxley's meltdown. All of it. Reaper stood just beyond the tree-line, half in shadow, half in sun. His armor was scorched and cracked, circuitry exposed at one shoulder. But he looked alive. There was no better word for it. He wasn't quite a machine anymore, and not quite a man either. He was something new. Something in between. And he was thinking. That much Kara could tell without asking. He stared out into the jungle like he was seeing it for the first time, and wondering if it would ever see him back. Tommy let out a triumphant cheer as the signal blinked green. Okay, that's it. The story's out. Posted to 4 underground forums, 6 public conspiracy boards, 1 obscure fanfiction site, and accidentally to my mom's church newsletter. Give it 20 minutes, and we'll be internet famous or hunted by 5 governments. Kara didn't even turn her head. I'm not sure those are mutually exclusive. Tommy walked over, dropped onto the moss beside her, and stared at the lake. You know, I used to think if we ever found something like Eden, it'd be like a beacon of hope. But now I think the best thing about it is that we stopped it from being used. She nodded slowly. Hope doesn't come from power. It comes from restraint. Behind them, Reaper stepped forward, his voice low and steady. The vault is sealed. I've erased the command pathways. No one can open it again without the correct neuro key. And I have the only one. Tommy glanced at him. That means you're the gatekeeper now. That's a lot of pressure, buddy. Reaper's eyes glowed faintly, then dimmed. Then I'll stay here. In the jungle. Watch over it. Make sure no one else makes the same mistake. Kara turned to him. You'd really stay here? Live like a hermit surrounded by screaming monkeys and glowing vines? He gave her a look. I've been built to follow orders my entire existence. This is the first time I get to choose. She met his eyes, then slowly stood. In that case, maybe you should stop calling yourself Reaper. He tilted his head. Then what do I call myself? She shrugged. That's your first real decision. He seemed to consider that deeply. Tommy chimed in. I vote for Jungle Dad. Kara snorted, then kicked water at him. A rustle in the trees made them all turn, weapons raised out of reflex. But it wasn't danger this time. It was a small, familiar shape. The strange floating toaster rabbit, newly reconstituted from a hidden backup core, bobbed into view. Its eyes blinked cheerfully, and it chirped a musical little tune. Silnax followed a moment later, stepping from the shadows with that same weary serenity. He raised one hand, not in greeting but in farewell. Kara gave a small nod. There were no words needed. Silnax's message was clear: thank you. And goodbye. Then he was gone, back into the wild that had somehow made room for him. A few days later, the world reacted exactly as expected. Chaos. Denial. Obsession. Some called it a hoax. Others blamed rival nations. A fringe group claimed the hybrids were biblical angels and began holding jungle pilgrimages. Governments scrambled, of course, but the Eden Vault was never found again. Not by satellite. Not by drone. It vanished beneath the surface, hidden by a jungle that now actively resisted intrusion. Trees regrew faster. Roots choked sensors. The land had made its choice. Tommy took the fame as well as anyone who once wore tinfoil hats professionally could. He started a podcast naturally called Aliens, Assassins, and Evolving Morals, featuring segments like Reaper's Jungle Recipes and Conspiracies that are only 40% insane. It exploded in popularity, particularly after he began co-hosting with an AI copy of himself he built using scrap from Reaper's tech. That AI mostly made fart jokes and offered unsolicited relationship advice. Kara returned to the alien hunter base for a brief debrief, then promptly quit. They offered her medals, clearance upgrades, a job leading a Black Ops team. She told them to shove it gently and went home, to the jungle, not the concrete one but the real one, the one that had always called to her more than any command chain ever could. She didn't go to the vault, but she stayed nearby. And sometimes, at night, she would hear strange, not unpleasant noises coming from deep within the trees. Whispers. Hums. Laughter, even. And she knew Reaper was still out there, watching, learning, changing. Protecting not just Eden, but what Eden meant. There was a quiet satisfaction in that. Knowing that not every story ended with destruction. Some ended with guardians. Some with choice. One night, as the sky bled purple and the moon hung like a scar, Kara sat on her old perch overlooking the lake. She heard footsteps behind her. Soft. Familiar. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. Reaper sat beside her, silent for a moment. "You chose to stay," she said after a while. "I did," he replied. "And I've started dreaming again." She looked over at him. "About what?" He paused. "About walking. But not with a mission. Just walking. Feeling the ground. The air. The space between heartbeats." She smiled. "Sounds like life." He nodded. "It's strange. But not unpleasant." They sat there in silence, two figures shaped by war, reborn in stillness. Somewhere in the distance, a hybrid sang, a song not of machines or wires, but of wind and water and sky. The world hadn't ended. It had, in its own strange way, begun.